What we do in Fstar is to make a building block to convert an existing antibody to be bispecific. So all of those 5 antibodies are bispecifics that are based on our different building blocks that we have generated.
Hi, my name is Mike Ward. I'm the head of content at Script and The Pink Sheet. We're here in Berlin at the Bio-Europe partnering meeting, and it's where pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, and also investors get together and sort of discuss potential deals, or just get a sort of take a pulse of actually what's happening in the industry. These days, we're actually seeing some very, very innovative business models, and one of the movers in that innovation is a company in Cambridge called Fstar. They a few years ago unveiled a process which was a very asset-centric approach of building businesses and doing deals, and they've done a number of those deals. I'm joined by John Haurum, who's the CEO of Fstar. So thanks for joining us, John.
Thanks, Mike.
So you've done like four deals now.
Yeah.
We're at Fstar Delta.
Yeah.
We actually haven't had much of an opportunity to talk face to face about Fstar Delta. So could you just sort of give us a quick rundown of sort of the highlights of that deal?
Yeah. So Fstar Delta, as you said, is our 4th deal out of an asset-centric vehicle. Our company focus is in immuno-oncology, and Delta is leveraging 5 bispecific antibody products from the immuno-oncology space. We have our internal proprietary activities to develop compounds, and sometimes out of those proprietary compounds we then generate these business deals. And Delta is based on 5 bispecifics that are targeting multiple checkpoints. So we licensed those compounds into Fstar Delta, and then this summer announced a deal with Merck, German Merck, that we have had a partnership for a long time with. They essentially obtained an option to acquire Fstar Delta. They paid an upfront payment, which is comprising both a fee to the shareholders for the option, a license payment to the company during the period, R&D funding, and also some milestone payments during the early option period. And then once that option period expires, they have a pre-negotiated right to acquire Delta, which then includes those 5 programs. And they can then internalize the assets and develop them through the clinic. The first program is just about to hit the clinic. Within the next 6 to 12 months, it will become a clinical stage asset. And we're really excited about this collaboration.
Okay, so the sort of the value of the deal?
So the numbers we have communicated are the upfront payment, which is 100 million euro approximately, which comprise those different elements that I mentioned before: the option fee to the shareholders, and the license payment to the company, and some R&D funding. And then we haven't disclosed the breakdown of the subsequent payment, but the total buyout in aggregate is 1 billion euro, including the 100 million. Of course, the first payment is the exercise in a couple of years, and it's a proportion of that 1 billion euro.
And have you identified yet the targets?
Yeah, all 5 programs are in discovery or in preclinical development, and they are all named targets. Yes.
Right. Okay.
And so what we do in Fstar is to make a building block to convert an existing antibody to be bispecific. So all of those 5 antibodies are bispecifics that are based on our different building blocks that we have generated, that are all targeting checkpoint inhibitors. And then we also bring the second specificity in this collaboration. We bring the second specificity into the compounds as well, the ordinary monoclonal antibodies. In other collaborations we would do, the partner might bring the second specificity to the table. So last year we did a deal with Denali, and there we are generating a building block that will bring their antibodies across the blood-brain barrier. So we are essentially creating the tool that will make it possible for their drugs to get into the brain. So that's an example of a deal where the partner brings the second target space and expertise and biology.
And that, I mean, what was interesting about that particular deal was that was your first foray into CNS.
Yes.
Yeah. So So if we look at the asset that's going to go into the clinic first, do we know which, have you said which checkpoint inhibitor it is?
So of the 5 in the deal with Merck, that's the only one where we have disclosed the targets. So it's a dual checkpoint modulator that inhibits both LAG3 and PD-L1.
Right, okay.
So it's what you could say, if there's something as a classical IO agent, that's a classical IO agent that it targets 2 different checkpoints. But we believe that there is novel biology from bringing those 2 into one compound, that there's some synergy between the 2 that makes it different from the straight combination.
Yeah. So we've talked over the years, through Fstar Alpha through to Fstar Delta, these various deals that you've done, and they all have sort of slightly different nuances. I just wondering, sort of, how has your sort of deal making evolved since you sort of first launched this asset-centric business model?
So the core of the deal approach remains the same, and that we have the separate entity. We license the compound from the company into the asset-centric vehicle, and then we prefer to do these option to acquire deals on the new entity. And the first deal we did was a very straightforward version of that. There was one compound in that entity, and there was an option to acquire that entity. The second deal we did was with a different structure. So that was a classical license agreement. So out of beta, we actually have a straight license agreement with AbbVie. And then we can say that as we have moved along, we've started to combine some of these mechanisms. So for example, in the deal with Denali in the blood-brain barrier space, it's a combination of the 2. So they have the option to acquire gamma, but they can also choose to not acquire gamma and continue as a license model. And then they can continue with a couple of uses of that building block, and we can then retain the other uses.
And that's because they're actually almost using your technology as a delivery system across the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, and they might, of course, I both hope and to some extent also anticipate that Denali will be so excited about this technology that enables that they will want to be exclusive for that building block, and the way they become that is by acquiring the entity. But if they feel that it's sufficient for them to have a certain number of use rights, then they will just take a license, and that will be determined prior to them exercising, which is before phase 1 clinical trials. And then in the latest deal with Delta, it's a further evolution that there we have now for the first time multiple named compounds, the 5 that I mentioned, and it's a structure where we continue to prosecute the assets, so we are still responsible for all the work during the option period. And then our partner Merck they have a right to decide up until a certain point whether they want to buy the compounds through buying Delta. And if they don't, then we retain the rights then to the compounds and can prosecute them out.
And companies who wish to engage with Fstar, does that mean that they could choose any one of those options, an alpha, a beta, a gamma or delta type deal?
We have a certain flexibility in, so we are essentially free to choose whichever design we prefer at the given moment, and it depends on whether it's a single target deal, is it strategic for a certain area, what kind of deal structure we prefer. But yes, we are relatively flexible. What has changed with time, of course, is that we have had significant validation both from the deals and also in terms of financial strength from the deals. So, for example, over the last years in those deals that we just talked about, we raised 200 million euro in income, both in terms of revenue to the company and also in part payments to the shareholders. So it means that we have a good financial strength, and therefore we don't need to do deals just for the sake of it. We will only do them if they bring either novel biology in a therapy area that we are not active in, or if they bring significant financial returns.
And how many sort of entities do you think that Fstar can sustain at one given time?
Yeah, I don't personally think that there is a limit in the near term to that. I mean, of course, the target space is finite in a sense, but we're so far from approaching that limit. So it's more the innovation within the bispecific space. There's a lot of innovation still to be done, bringing together novel types of mechanism of actions, and every time there's a breakthrough there, we could potentially tap into that with our platform. So I think as a model for biotech, the way we do it is sustainable, definitely also within Fstar. We are 85 people in the company now, and we're still growing because most advanced program is going into the clinic, so we will need to continue to expand on the sort of capabilities within late stage development. But there's a limit to how much 85 people can do, and so our therapeutic focus is very, very clear within IO in immuno-oncology, and we would only work outside of that space in the context of a partnership. But it's not the same as saying that there aren't opportunities out there that could be exploited.
Right, great. Well, John, thanks for stopping by. Pleasure,
Thank you very much,
as
Mike.
always.
Yeah,
cheers.
Likewise, thank you.